Have you ever started your day with a glass of cold water? It sounds refreshing, doesn't it? That cool sensation running down your throat, waking up your body, makes you feel like you're kickstarting a bright and alert morning. Helen, 76 years old, used to believe that too. Every morning she'd get out of bed, head straight to the kitchen, pour herself a glass of water from the fridge, and down it in one long gulp. She thought she was doing something good for her health, cleansing her body, jump-starting her digestion, rehydrating after a long night. But then something began to change. At first it was the chill spreading through her limbs, forcing her to put on a sweater even though the weather wasn't cold. Then came the dull stomach aches that lasted all morning. On some days, she even felt dizzy while washing her face. She assumed it was due to poor sleep or that aging made her body more sensitive. But the truth was something else entirely. After a long sleep, the body enters a state similar to mild hibernation. The digestive system slows down, and blood circulation also operates at a reduced pace. During this time, a glass of cold water, seemingly harmless, acts like a slap to the internal system. Cold water causes blood vessels to constrict, especially around the stomach and digestive tract. It can lead to stomach muscle spasms and negatively affect nutrient absorption. Worse still, for older adults with a history of low blood pressure or circulation issues, the sudden change in temperature from cold water can cause mild hypotension, dizziness, or even fainting. Helen had no idea that her healthy morning habit was the very thing draining her energy. She no longer felt refreshed after drinking water. Instead, she felt a persistent discomfort in her belly, icy cold hands, and occasional cramps in her lower abdomen. She chalked it up to just being old. Until one day, during a routine health checkup, the doctor asked a simple question. What kind of water do you usually drink in the morning? And from that one question, everything began to change. The doctor advised her to try switching to warm water, just plain water, either left to sit at room temperature or mixed with a bit of hot water. Helen was skeptical, but she gave it a shot. The next morning, she left the water bottle on the table instead of putting it in the fridge. Her first glass of water wasn't icy but gently warm, like a soothing whisper. No stomach tightness, no trembling hands, and most importantly, no nausea. She sat back in her chair feeling something strange, peace in her body. A week later, the dull morning aches were gone. Her hands stayed warm while washing the dishes. Each morning, instead of feeling dizzy when she stood up, she felt light and naturally alert. Everything unfolded so subtly, but that very subtlety was what made it precious. You might be thinking, it's just water temperature. How big of a deal could it be? But after 60, the body doesn't react as swiftly as it once did. A small change, like the temperature of the water you drink, can have a big impact on blood pressure, digestion, and circulation. You don't have to give up the habit of drinking water in the morning that just changed the way you begin. Not with a cold glass of water that shocks your nervous system, but with a warm one that gently wakes up your body with kindness. I want you to picture this. Every morning you wake up in soft sunlight, pour yourself a glass of warm water, rest your hands on the cup, and feel the warmth spreading. Your body isn't jolted awake, it's gently roused, like a slow, soothing melody. You don't need that cold water jolt to feel awake, you just need a gentle beginning, enough to support a body that's growing older day by day. Helen's habit has changed. She now prepares her own bottle of water and keeps it at room temperature. Every morning as she pours her water, she smiles to herself as if she's greeting a new day without having to battle unseen fatigue. Interestingly, after sharing this tip at the local seniors club, many of her peers gave it a try. And you know what? They all said the same thing. I feel more comfortable, more at ease, like my body no longer resists the morning. If you've been drinking cold water every morning thinking it helps you feel refreshed, I invite you to try changing it once. There's nothing to lose, just switch that cold glass for a warm one. And if you've ever felt mild stomach discomfort, cold hands, or dizziness after drinking water, chances are your body is simply asking for a gentler start to the day. If you've ever had cold water first thing in the morning, drop a number 1 to let me know you're following this part. Who knows, a small change tomorrow might just be a big improvement for the rest of your life. George is a 72-year-old man living alone in a small wooden house by a pine forest on the outskirts of Oregon. He used to be a track and field coach, accustomed to discipline and a steady routine. In recent years, though retired, George has maintained his habit of waking up early at 5:30 a.m. He opens the window, breathes in the fresh air, then heads straight to the kitchen, turns on the filtered water tap, and downs a 500 milliliter bottle of water, all within a matter of minutes. He believed he was doing the right thing. Articles, health programs, and advice from senior wellness groups all emphasized, drink lots of water in the morning to cleanse your body. George believed it, and with the seriousness of a former coach, he never skipped a single step in his self-cleansing ritual. However, after a few months, he began to notice something wasn't right. It started with a sluggish feeling about 30 minutes after drinking the water. Then came light nausea, sometimes accompanied by dizziness, especially when bending down to tie his shoes or standing up too quickly after sitting for a while. One morning, he even felt his heart racing as if he were sprinting, even though he was just standing still. George, someone deeply familiar with how the body reacts in sports, began to question the very habit he thought was healthy. He started recording the timing of his water intake, the amount, and how he felt afterward. 1 week, then 2 weeks, he began to notice a pattern. Every time he drank a large amount of water quickly in the morning, the symptoms would appear. The question was, why would drinking water, something so essential and healthy, make him feel worse? The truth is, when the body first wakes up, it is still transitioning from a state of rest to activity. Heart rate, blood pressure, circulation, digestion, they're all booting up. If you suddenly pour a large volume of water into your digestive system in a short time, that's a shock you don't immediately recognize. Your circulatory system isn't ready to handle fluid distribution. Your kidneys haven't reached optimal operating temperature, and your stomach, still empty, is suddenly stretched, causing the stomach walls to contract to process the intake. The result? You feel bloated, dizzy, or simply drained. This is especially true for older adults whose fluid and electrolyte regulation mechanisms have weakened with age. Drinking too fast can overwhelm the kidneys, forcing the body to expel fluids rapidly, leading to imbalances. Some may even experience skipped heartbeats or slight palpitations after drinking too quickly, because the sudden increase in circulating fluid volume can stimulate the heart. George brought his concerns to his family doctor. He detailed his morning routine, leaving nothing out. The doctor listened patiently, then nodded slowly and said, "The issue isn't that you're drinking water, it's how you're drinking it. Your body doesn't need an entire bottle in a few seconds. It needs small sips, just enough to gently wake up every system inside." George was struck silent. That one sentence opened a whole new perspective. He didn't need to change everything, just the rhythm. The next day, he poured his water into a small glass. Instead of gulping it down, he sat by the window, sipping slowly. He closed his eyes, felt the cool stream ease down his throat, listened to his breathing, the bird's song in the distance, and the gentle rustling of wind through the trees. It took him nearly 20 minutes to drink the same amount of water as before. But this time, there was no dizziness, no stomach backlash, no irregular heartbeat. His body felt light, and that morning unfolded more peacefully than any other in recent months. This new habit quickly became something he cherished. Each morning, he turned drinking water into a ritual, a slow start, no longer rushed. He placed the glass on the wooden table, played a wordless melody, and savored each sip as if drinking tea. Once, a friend visiting early in the morning asked, surprised, "What are you drinking so ceremoniously?" George just smiled and replied, "Water," but with mindfulness. He began sharing the experience during a senior club gathering in town. Many laughed when they heard about drinking water slowly to avoid dizziness. But a week later, someone returned and said, "George, I tried it. It's strange, I no longer feel heavy in the stomach. My whole morning feels clearer." It's a small habit, but its power is anything but small. You don't need to change your whole life. Just change how you begin your morning. If you've been drinking water quickly right after waking up, try slowing down. Use a small glass, keep it beside your chair, and let yourself sip over the first 15-20 minutes of your day. During that time, you could listen to soft music, breathe deeply, or simply gaze out the window. See how your body responds. Like George, you might notice a subtle difference, a feeling of lightness, ease, and an alertness that arrives naturally without force. Don't let your morning thirst become a water dump into a body that's still waking up. Turn it into a conversation, gentle, sip by sip, minute by minute, breath by breath. If you've ever had the habit of drinking water too fast in the morning, drop a number 2 so I know you're reading this part, and let that be the marker of a small change that might lead to a big improvement for your health, your mind, and your journey toward peaceful aging. Harold is a 78-year-old man living alone in a small third-floor apartment in a quiet neighborhood in Vermont. He lives with order, neatness, and pays close attention to every detail. One habit of his, which he believed to be quite scientific, was always keeping a water bottle by his bedside. Every night before going to bed, Harold would fill a plastic bottle from the filtered tap in his kitchen. He'd place it on the small table next to his bed so that the next morning he could drink it right away without having to get up or disturb a body still lingering in sleep. At first, everything seemed fine, but then strange things began to happen. He started to feel like his head was constantly heavy, as if a thin layer of fog clouded his thoughts. Even though he was getting enough sleep, he still felt tired in the mornings. His digestion slowed, his stomach felt sluggish, sometimes bloated, and he often lost his appetite. What worried him the most was the sense that his sharpness was fading. One day he went into the kitchen to get a spoon, only to stand there for several seconds, unable to remember what he was doing. These moments kept happening, quietly but consistently, like a faint signal from within. He thought he was just getting older, nothing more. Until one day he happened upon a line in a book about senior health that read, "Drinking water stored overnight in plastic bottles can affect the nervous system." That sentence jolted him. He looked at the small table beside his bed at the familiar plastic bottle, slightly crumpled from many uses. He picked it up, looked at the cloudy, scratched surface, and wondered, could this be the silent culprit? Harold began to investigate. He read medical materials, asked a doctor he trusted, and uncovered a truth many people overlook. Plastic, especially plastic that's been reused over a long time, can leach chemical compounds like BPA or similar derivatives. With exposure to room temperature, lamplight, and time, these molecules can seep into the water. And when you drink it, even just a sip in the morning, it still enters your body. Studies show that these compounds can interfere with hormonal functions, affect the liver, kidneys, and even reduce cognitive ability when accumulated over time. And the worst part? You can't sense it immediately. There's no taste. The water still looks clear, cool, and clean to the naked eye. But inside, a slow erosion begins quietly. Harold felt like someone waking up from a long dream. He couldn't believe a small, seemingly harmless habit could have such a large impact on his health. He began to change. He bought a thick glass bottle with a wooden lid. Each morning after drinking, he cleaned it thoroughly, let it dry, and only poured fresh water in before bed. No more letting water sit overnight in a plastic bottle. No more reusing worn-out materials. He started keeping the water in a cool place, away from direct light. Every action now carried a new mindfulness, not just drinking water, but caring for himself through seemingly invisible details. After just 2 weeks, Harold noticed the first difference. In the morning, his head no longer felt foggy. He could think clearly again, remember what he was planning to do without strain. The lightness in his stomach made breakfast more enjoyable. The lack of appetite disappeared. He even felt more agile, as if his body had been relieved of an unnamed burden. When he shared this story during a senior reading group at the local library, someone chuckled and said, "A plastic bottle can mess with your hormones?" Harold didn't argue. He simply said, "I don't know about anyone else, but since I made the change, I feel clearer, calmer, as if someone opened a window in my brain." A woman in the group named Martha looked at him quietly, then nodded. A few days later, she too replaced her old plastic bottle with a small ceramic jug. And she later messaged Harold, "Thank you. I didn't think a small change could make me feel this much better." The scariest habits in life aren't the obviously bad ones. They're the ones we think are good, so familiar and long-standing that we never question them. The plastic bottle beside Harold's bed used to be a friend, a symbol of preparedness and care. But over time, it became a silent betrayer, undermining his health without a sound. And maybe the same thing is happening to you. If you're using a plastic bottle to store your morning water, especially one that sits overnight, has been reused many times and has scratches, try replacing it with a glass or stainless steel bottle. Pour fresh water every morning, and then watch your body slowly, gently to see what changes. Maybe your body will thank you. Maybe the fatigue you thought was just old age was actually caused by a bottle. If you've ever left water overnight in a plastic bottle, drop a number 3. Not for judgment, but to mark a small shift, a quiet awakening in your journey of self-care. Linda used to be a literature teacher and is now retired at the age of 80. She lives in a quiet second-floor apartment in Seattle, overlooking a small garden that's always bathed in sunlight in the mornings. Linda is meticulous, organized, and extremely principled. Every morning she wakes up at 6 a.m., he walks into the kitchen, drinks a full glass of water, then takes the thyroid pill she always keeps in a tray. She has followed this routine for over 10 years, same time, same amount, same order. She never questioned it, until recently. Linda began to feel an unspoken discomfort in the mornings. After drinking the water and taking her medication, she would feel mildly nauseous. Sometimes it was a lump in her throat, other times a bloated stomach, as if she had just eaten a large meal. Some mornings she had to sit for a long time at the kitchen table, hands on her stomach, breathing slowly to ride out the queasiness. Even though she still ate breakfast an hour later as recommended, her mind didn't feel as steady as it used to. The symptoms kept returning, quietly and consistently, until she began to worry. At first, Linda assumed it was just age. She called her daughter and said, "Maybe I'm just old now and my stomach's getting weaker." But her daughter, a nurse, paused for a moment and asked, "Mom, how much water do you drink with your medication in the morning?" Linda replied without hesitation, "A whole glass has to be enough to help the pill go down, right?" There was a pause on the other end. "Mom, maybe you're drinking too much on an empty stomach. Try using less water and see what happens." That sentence stunned Linda. A full glass of water wasn't that always encouraged? But then she thought about it. In truth, there were very few guidelines that clearly stated how much water was actually needed when taking medication. And perhaps she had been applying the principle of more is better, a little, blindly. The next morning, she poured half a glass, around 100 ml, and used just that to swallow her pill. She sat still, placed her hand on her stomach, waiting for the familiar queasy feeling. But strangely, it never came. Her stomach felt calm. No cramps, no nausea. After 45 minutes, she had her usual light breakfast, and this time she enjoyed it. And that feeling wasn't fleeting. The following day, she again used less water, and everything was still fine. More than that, her clarity in the morning began to return. She no longer lingered in that groggy state between sleep and full awareness. Linda realized that perhaps, for years, she had been putting her body through a small but persistent strain day after day. In older adults, the stomach and small intestine are often more sensitive to changes in pressure and volume. When the stomach is empty and a large amount of water is introduced, the gastric juices are diluted and the stomach lining is irritated, especially when combined with medication. Many drugs such as levothyroxine, aspirin, or osteoporosis treatments are already sensitive to their absorption conditions. If too much water is added, the body might not process it effectively, leading to nausea, bloating, or even reduced absorption of the medication. Her doctor later confirmed to Linda that when taking medication in the morning, especially on an empty stomach, only enough water to swallow is necessary, not an entire glass. More importantly, after taking the pill, one should wait at least 30-60 minutes before eating, so the medication can be properly absorbed. Drinking too much water doesn't speed up the process. It may dilute the medication or reduce the time it remains in the intestinal lining, where absorption is crucial. Linda gradually adjusted her entire morning routine. Instead of taking her pill right after waking up, she sat up slowly, breathed deeply for a few minutes, then drank the necessary amount of water, no more, no less. Afterwards, she spent 30-45 minutes walking gently in the garden, listening to music, or reading a favorite chapter from a book before breakfast. Since then, she no longer felt heavy in her stomach, nor did she feel nauseous or bloated. What brought her the most joy was the lightness her body now gave her. Mornings became calm and pleasant, no longer a struggle between medication, water, and fatigue. Instead, they were a harmonious rhythm between body and life. At a reunion with old friends, Linda shared her experience. A friend named Deborah laughed and said, "I used to take my pills with a full glass too. I thought I was being kind to my body." Linda smiled and replied, "Sometimes being kind means doing a little less. More isn't always better. Especially for older adults, precision just enough might be the key to lasting health." Do you take your morning medication with a full glass of water? Have you ever felt bloated, nauseous, or lost your appetite afterward? If so, try a gentle change. Use less water, sit quietly, and wait a few minutes before eating. Then listen to how your body responds. Who knows, like Linda, you might discover something simple yet profound. Your body is always speaking to you, you just haven't been listening the right way. If you've ever taken medication with a full glass of water in the morning, drop a number 4. Not because you were wrong, but because you've just discovered something new, a gentler, more effective way to take care of yourself. Susan, 69 years old, is an independent, sharp-witted woman who loves staying up to date with new trends. Though she's been retired for several years, she still keeps the habit of reading the news every morning and trying new things to maintain both her physical and mental youthfulness. One day, after reading an article about the benefits of intermittent fasting, Susan was intrigued. She thought, just drinking water in the morning, skipping a meal, letting the body rest makes perfect sense. And so she began a new routine. Wake up early, drink a large glass of water, then fast until noon. At first, everything seemed fine. Susan felt lighter, her stomach looked flatter, and at times she even felt more alert than usual. But after a few weeks, she began to notice some unpleasant changes. Her mind would sometimes feel foggy, she forgot names more easily, and often repeated stories she'd already told. One day she stood frozen in the kitchen, holding a pot, unable to remember what she meant to do. Over time, a sense of morning weakness became more and more noticeable. Trembling hands while opening jars, irritability when answering phone calls, and a surprising fatigue after doing just a few simple tasks. Her daughter, a keen observer, noticed something was off during a few conversations. One afternoon, while the two of them were organizing a bookshelf, she gently said, "Mom, you've been forgetting small things lately. Are you feeling okay?" Susan sighed and admitted she often felt like she was floating through the mornings. When her daughter asked about her eating habits, Susan replied, "I've been trying intermittent fasting, just water in the morning. A lot of people are doing it." Her daughter didn't judge. She simply asked, "Mom, what if you tried changing it just for a week? Have something light each morning and see how you feel?" Susan agreed, partly out of curiosity, partly because she was beginning to question her new habit herself. The next day, she woke up early as usual. She still drank a small glass of warm water, but this time she boiled an egg and toasted a slice of bread. She sat down at the table, unhurried, without pressure. The breakfast passed in quiet, the only sound being the soft clink of a spoon on her plate. And something small happened. Her stomach warmed up, and her mind cleared. After just 3 days, Susan began to feel more powered up. Her hands no longer trembled when opening a jar of jam. She didn't need to sit down and rest in the middle of watering the plants. More importantly, she suddenly remembered the name of an old song she'd had stuck in her head for a week. A small victory, but for her, a vital sign. Her body was thanking her for the change. Later, her doctor explained it in simple terms. During sleep, the body is already in a prolonged fasting state. By morning, the liver's glycogen, its fastest energy reserve for the brain, is depleted. If fasting continues, blood sugar drops, the brain lacks fuel, and symptoms like brain fog, memory lapses, and mood swings arise. Furthermore, older adults have weaker blood sugar regulation, increasing the risk of hypoglycemia without even realizing it. Drinking water is essential, But water alone doesn't replace energy. It helps kickstart circulation, digestion, and detoxification. But for the brain to function, for muscles to move, for emotions to remain stable, you need nutrition. A small breakfast like an egg, a bit of oatmeal, a few slices of fruit, or a warm glass of milk can make a big difference in the quality of your remaining years. Susan continued eating breakfast after that experience, not because she was afraid of low blood sugar or memory loss, but because she realized breakfast isn't just about survival, it's a way to start the day with gratitude for the body. Every morning she wakes up early, pours warm water, boils an egg, spreads a little jam on her toast, and sits by the window watching the red leaves fall into the backyard. It's no longer a required breakfast, but a ritual of being alive. One time, during a conversation with her senior friends, Susan shared this story. Someone asked, "But I heard skipping breakfast helps with weight loss, doesn't it?" Susan smiled and replied, "That might be true for younger people. But at this age, what I want to hold on to isn't my waistline, it's my memory, my clarity, and my joy of living." That sentence made the whole group fall silent for a moment, as if someone had lightly tapped their hearts. Afterwards, they made a plan. Each person would try eating breakfast regularly for a week, then share how they felt at the next meeting. If you've ever skipped breakfast thinking just water is enough, I invite you to try a small change. You don't need a lavish meal. Just one egg, a piece of fruit, or a few biscuits is enough to send your body a signal. I still care about you. And if you've read this far, drop a number 5 as a small commitment to yourself. That tomorrow you'll begin your day with a new breakfast. Not just to live, but to live with clarity, strength, memory, and joy. We've just walked through 5 seemingly small mistakes in morning hydration habits, yet each one can significantly impact health, clarity, and quality of life after the age of 60. Cold water that causes stomach contractions and narrows blood vessels, triggering silent spells of dizziness each morning. Drinking water too quickly, which feels efficient, but actually overwhelms the kidneys and startles the nervous system. That familiar plastic bottle by the bed, silently leaching toxins into every colorless, odorless sip. A full glass of water taken with your medication disrupting the stomach and dulling the effectiveness of the medicine. And the habit of water instead of breakfast, which sounds smart but leaves your brain hungry, memory foggy, and your mood far more fragile than you think. These issues don't arrive like a storm. They drift in like fog, gently, slowly, nearly imperceptible, until one day you find yourself tired, weak, or no longer quite yourself in the mornings. But precisely because they arrive quietly, we can also change them gently. You don't need to overhaul your entire life. Just choose one thing, one smallest change, and begin tomorrow. It could be swapping cold water for warm. It could be using a glass bottle instead of plastic, or simply eating a banana before heading out to the garden. Your body will thank you for it. It doesn't need anything extravagant. It just needs you to be a little kinder, a little more attentive, and a little more consistent every day. And if you've stayed with me this far, try choosing one change to apply over the next 3 days. Then come back to this post and tell me, so, what has changed in you? Leave a comment, not just the number you follow to, but an honest reflection of your experience. Because those reflections, they don't just help me, they inspire others walking this same path with you. If you found this video helpful, share it with someone you care about, someone who might also be starting their morning the wrong way. And don't forget, growing older doesn't have to mean being slow, tired, or unclear. It just means starting over with one glass of water in mindfulness.